Good morning. This right here is the Elgato Prompter. It is a teleprompter. It plugs into a computer and it acts as a second screen. You take a script, if you're somebody who records a lot of video content, you type up a script, put it on this screen, and this piece of glass reflects those words out at you. And it makes it so that if you want to read that script, but make it look like you're talking to the audience and looking right into the lens, that's what this is for. If you've ever watched the news, I'm sure some of you have. If you're my age, you don't. If you ever watch the news, you know that people are reading and they are not blinking and they're just telling you about how many people have perished and Chester the molester needs to be looked out for, and they're just reading and that's how they do it. They use a prompter. I got this prompter from Elgato as a review unit. I was going to beta test it, make some content about it. Pretty quickly, I realized that there was a flaw. It didn't work the way that I wanted it to work, and that got my brain ticking. And then that sent me on probably now a 9-month journey of painting it, 3D designing parts, 3D printing parts, prototyping, testing, and it just turned into this excursion. And I kind of went psycho on it, but it's been great. It's been fun. It's been awesome. It's been a huge learning experience. And I want to tell you about the parts that I designed, why I designed them that way, and just kind of give you behind the scenes of how I got here, how it's been 9 months of messing with this thing. Even though I am an Elgato ambassador and I got this thing for free, I believe that this is like one of the greatest products to have as a creator. It is so helpful. It is so functional, and dare I say, improved by this kit that I've designed for it. So this video is going to be so yappy. It's just going to be a bunch of talking. I'm going to show you some of the designs. I'm going to show you the 3D printed versions of them, explain the whys. So it's not going to be highly edited. I apologize, and I have ADHD, so it's probably going to be pretty rambly. I think that I, as a viewer, would love to see somebody go into the design process and the thought process behind it. And I also want to give other people ideas as far as like how to use it and get feedback and improve it. I like the sharing of this information. And by the way, this video is also kind of an announcement that these kits are going to be available for purchase. So if you see this and you are just so flabbergasted by my big brain moment, they will be for sale. More details on that in the future. So very quickly, how it works, and then what was the main thing wrong with it that I felt was wrong with it that sent me on this journey of wanting to redesign parts for it. Very, very simple setup. You've got the LCD screen, plugs into your computer over USB. That's all it needs. You have a camera, and they have multiple mounting systems. Your camera actually mounts onto the prompter itself, and there's a little L-bracket that actually holds it in place. You got the prompter itself, you can put it on a tripod, you can put it on a boom arm, and then they have this L-bracket that mounts right to the back of the prompter. You get a thumb screw of some sort, it screws in, holds the camera in place. So the main problem of the prompter right off the bat is that it has this amazing design where they give you a bunch of step-up rings that screw onto the edge of your lens, and it slides into place, and it keeps everything nice and snug and secure. The problem is, with the way that this is designed, you have to remove this bracket to get back to it again. So here, I'll turn this on its side. Take your camera, slides into place, and you can see if you let go, it actually stays there. And then you can take your screw back. You're kind of relying on the stability of the lens plate and your camera's lens to keep it in place, but this is pretty much how it works. You do have the option to screw it in from the bottom, but as somebody who constantly took their camera on and off the prompter to use it for other things, I never screwed it to the prompter itself. I always just let it hang loose. So there's the setup. Now, this is only one of the setups, right? They have different mounting points on the bottom of the prompter. One thing I should say, if you're looking at this and going, holy shit, Elgato makes a white prompter. They don't. I painted this. If you want to see the details on how I did that, the last video on this channel actually covers that. So this is one of the setups. There is multiple brackets that you can use. You don't have to use it with a mirrorless camera. You can use it with DSLRs or USB webcams. So not being able to remove the camera easily from this was issue number one. The bigger issue that I discovered quite quickly was that if you wanted to shoot portrait content, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, there was no way for you to rotate the camera at least in an easy way or a manageable way. And that just really bummed me out. And if you go back and watch the very first video on this channel, there is videos of me trying to use different tension arms and brackets to like fandangle a way to use this with portrait setups. And I just wasn't satisfied. I was somebody who had gotten into 3D printing in like 2020, 2021, had an absolute awful time with a shit printer, and then I just gave up. It was too much, too difficult, too much to manage. And I ended up getting a 3D printer again. And then I thought to myself, I wonder if I could design something that could make this work. And then the rest is history. So I'll show you this too. This is the faceplate that is on back of the Elgato prompter. If you remove these two screws, this faceplate actually detaches from the prompter itself. And if you look at the prompter on the website or you look at their store, they make other faceplates. Before I went down the faceplate road, this is where I got into the L-bracket redesign road. I warn you that this is going to look absolutely chaotic, but I assure you that it is the only way I know how to work. These are all of the parts that I have designed for this project. Maybe I went a little crazy, maybe not. So the bracket is what I started with. It was the very first part that I designed. And as you can see, I went through so many different revisions of trying to find the thing that worked perfectly. And even now, I don't think that I have found the single most perfect bracket. And one of the reasons that there's going to be multiple available at launch is I really want to see what people find as the easiest to use or the best to use. And here are all the parts I printed. This started out as something really simple, right? I just wanted a bracket that was going to be skinnier, a little bit more low profile, and the ability to be rotated. So that's kind of where the name Rotomount or Rotolock came into play. Was I wanted a bracket that could be used in landscape mode, but just as easily could be rotated to use in portrait mode. Now, what happens when you are using this prompter and you want to rotate it is the height at which the L-bracket needs to be is too low. So I wish I would have showed you this while it was still in play, but you can see if this is where the L-bracket was going to be, right? If it was sitting here and then you went to try and rotate your camera, the L-bracket doesn't go low enough for you to be able to do that. And then if you wanted to rotate it the other way to where it would work, that's where all of my electronical connections were on the side. So that wasn't going to be possible either. So after all these revisions, I landed on 3 different brackets, and I have my favorite, but again, I want to see what everybody's favorite is. Here is the redesigned bracket. A lot skinnier, a lot more low profile. The reason I made this part of it so skinny is that when your camera is sitting, it allows you to open the tray door and to get to the battery and to the SD card without having to remove the camera. So big size difference. Now, as you can see, mine only has a single hole for mounting, while this one has a bunch of others. The one good thing about this bracket is it has support for using your phone if you want to. And that's something I plan on designing down the road, but using my phone for the prompter was not a priority for me. So there are some benefits still, but these benefits benefit me more. Same design though, has a larger hole so that one of these screws can pass through and then it can slide freely back and forth. And then that same track up here. So bracket goes into place, take your thumb screw, screws in, and then acts the same way as the other one does. Now again, the ability to rotate it was one of the reasons why I wanted this so bad. You also might notice that my lens plate has 4 holes. One of the first mods I did before I did any of this, before I even painted it, was I drilled additional holes so that this bracket could be turned upside down. And the main reason for that was now I can slide my camera in from the top without having to remove the bottom L bracket. I liked that. The fuck was that? Something just cracked. I didn't like that at all. Dude, I don't know what Elgato used for fucking threaded inserts, but I can never screw these back in, and I don't know why. There we go. Nope. Still fucking with it. So again, take your camera, lens slides into place, and then the bracket that I have, you can screw it in from the bottom if you want to, but somebody who wanted to remove their camera, I didn't want to have to screw it, but I did want to provide additional support so that all of the weight was not on the lens. Now remember, the main reason why I wanted to redesign this bracket is the ability to rotate. So let's say you are going from landscape to portrait mode. You want to start filming some portrait content. You can pull the camera off, or a lot of the times what I did is I just left the camera on, and I'll show that. So put the camera on, unscrew, let it rest, rotate them out, and then you can screw this back in again. This is a lot harder to do when I have to stabilize the prompter. Prompter, and then this rotates. And one of the other parts is a spacer that provides more support underneath the camera so that you can feel good about your camera not dangling in the middle of the air. So that was the whole idea. This wobbly stand was not the play. This is where I am undecided because I love the ability to freely rotate the bracket whenever I want. However, when I sent these kits out to beta testers and I gave them variations of the bracket, some of them preferred the ability to lock it in place. And that is where I came up with the design of the Rotolock, or the rotation lock, or orientation lock, Oreo lock. Rotolock. I haven't 100% decided on a name yet. That is where I came up with two different bracket designs. This first one is pretty much the same exact bracket as the first one, but there is a little cutout for this little piece. So if you wanted to just use the bracket as it was for version 1, that one could rotate as freely as the first one. But if you wanted the option to lock it in place once the bracket was in place, and that is one benefit to the bracket that, or the L-bracket that came with it, you could do that. So this little piece slides in, and these two squares here fit into these grooves. So kind of utilizing the design of the prompter itself. And then when this bracket is mounted, it actually stops it from rotating left and right. So it gives you the option to have both, but it is two different pieces. And this is one of the things that I designed on accident. So take that thumb screw, put it in through the larger hole, grab the bracket, same larger hole down there, put it in, and then this thumb screw is, I forgot, this thumb screw is too tiny. I need the longer thumb screw. Of course, the box of screws was sitting behind my iPad. Thumb screw goes in the larger hole, take the bracket, thumb screw goes in the larger hole, and then this whole thing slides up, and then this locks into place. And then again, the screw can still kind of move freely, but like this bracket that has it built in, same deal. Take the prompter, put it in place, thumb screw goes in, tighten it, and then you're locked. Pull this out. You could just go back to using it just like the other bracket. It's still gonna have this cut out for this piece, but that's the price you pay. It is so hot in here right now, and I'm so frustrated. I spent 15 minutes looking for that box of screws. So being somebody who shoots a lot of portrait content, I am a fan of the one that can rotate without locking into place. Because the lens has this ring that slides into the Elgato Prompter itself, I don't feel it necessary to have this lock it into place and not be able to rotate. Plus, if my prompter is ever mounted statically and I notice that it is tilted, having the rotatable allows you to move it back and forth to accommodate for any of that tilt. I also like that functionality as well. If you're somebody who doesn't know which bracket you're gonna like, I would probably suggest getting this one. If you end up not liking it, you do have the option to where you can just remove the rotolocker completely and just use it as the regular bracket, and this one will rotate just like the other one does. So now we get into the exciting part. Redesigning the bracket was so much fun, and I thought that was like the pinnacle. I thought that was the peak of this project. And then I realized I could redesign the faceplate as well. Now, originally, I had just tried to redesign the faceplate as it was. So I took the same exact faceplate that Elgato made, and I just built it from scratch. I just took all the measurements. I loved the design of being able to slide the camera into place, and that's how I ended up getting here. It wasn't until after I finished this and then printed it all and sent it to all the beta testers that I realized that design actually wasn't that great. And then I started working with Matsu XL to kind of redesign, and I was kind of bouncing ideas off of them. And then I ended up coming to this new design, which was still a new faceplate, but actually utilized Elgato's step-up ring version. Because the one thing that they had that I couldn't recreate is there's actually these two little spring-loaded pieces of plastic here, so that when the lens slides in, there's a little bit of pressure against it to kind of keep it snug. I couldn't recreate that with the 3D printer. At least, yeah, I just couldn't recreate it. What ended up happening was I kept most of the same design, and you'll see this little piece down here. It's this little nub that latches onto the bottom part of the housing to kind of keep it in place. But rather than redesign this and have people use the not as well manufactured version, I finally landed on this design that utilizes Elgato's bracket. So even though this whole kit is white, I'm going to use the black one just for contrast. So this is the redesigned bracket. Pretty much the same size, has the same screw holes, has the same little notch. Now, my faceplate doesn't have the notch because I cut mine off when I was originally beta testing this whole thing. So this faceplate mounts in the same way. All of the sold kits are going to come with these 2 1/4-inch screws that go into the same spot. Screw into place. Snug as a rug. Ugh. And then you take your Elgato faceplate. Again, instead of securing it like you would how the prompter was sold, right? Flip it upside down and this just slides into place. Snug as a rug. The idea behind the faceplate is now everybody can just rotate their step-up ring mounting plate upside down so that they can get their camera on and off easily. Instead of giving a redesigned mounting plate, you just use the Elgato one because it's better. Take a regular bracket, thumb screw, snug into place, take your camera, slide it in, and then this is kind of where once the camera is into place, that's when I kind of loosen my thumb screw. I push the bracket up to where the camera is, and this is a lot easier when the prompter is facing right side up. Screw it in, and that's how it goes. Easy peasy. Now you're a stormtrooper content creator. All right, so that's cool and all. What about the meat and potatoes, the portrait mode? Actually, a lot. I have one more part to show you that's related. This right here is the landscape spacer. So I have only been able to design this bracket for this prompter with my A6400 and my Sony ZV-E10. All bodies are different. All lenses are different sizes. And the hardest part was trying to come up with a design that was universal. And for all of the cameras that were tested with beta testers, nobody had any compatibility issues with sizing. I think there was one person who had Nikon cameras where portrait mode wasn't as sturdy as it was with other cameras. But I'm going to be sharing what they shared about the Nikon. Depending on the size of your body, you might be somebody who has to have the bracket a lot lower, and this spacer acts as a way to provide additional support depending on the size of your camera. The track that is on the top of the bracket, thumb screw goes in, and the landscape spacer has, if you want to screw it in, you can, and then there's also these 2 little nubs here that slide right into this track, and it prevents that from rotating as well. These right here are the portrait spacers. So these are meant to mount to the same bracket, but they support the camera when it's in the portrait orientation. We unscrew the bracket, we rotate it, put it back up, take your thumb screw, put it through, grab your portrait spacer, and screw it on from the top or the bottom. I don't judge. So now when that camera is in place and in portrait mode, you can adjust wherever the edge of your camera is to give that camera support when it's in portrait mode. So again, meant to be universal, so you can kind of find out where this should be located depending on the camera body that you have. Unscrew that into place, push the bracket up, give it some support, and now your camera is safe. I am somebody who doesn't feel the need to screw the camera in and mount it when it's in its portrait orientation. I feel that the bracket that connects the lens to the prompter takes half of the weight, where this bracket then takes the other half of the weight. I've been using this on and off for 7 to 8 months. I've never had the bracket fail or the camera fall. I've always felt this has been very sturdy. Now, the reason there are 2 sizes, again, depending on your camera body and the width, it's going to depend whether you need the portrait tall or the portrait small, but both are going to be included with one of the kits. All right, the final pieces of this bad boy. These were designed to be universal spacers. So if there happened to be a camera body and lens combination where the included spacers didn't quite fit right, these were just meant to be just in case. I don't think that these are going to be included with the kit anymore because all of the beta testers said they didn't use any of them. I think one person said they used the small one. So there's a chance that I might just include the small in the collector's edition, but I'm not entirely sure. Didn't seem like it was as useful. So those are a hot maybe. Another idea from one of the beta testers, Matsu, he said that as another creator who constantly takes the camera on and off the prompter, he still like to use the prompter as a secondary monitor. So if there is a gaping hole behind the prompter, if you've never used a prompter before, this needs to be covered so that the inside of the shroud is dark. Because if it's not dark, then it's harder to read the text. So if this is open and a bunch of light is coming through, you can't really see what's going on. So that is why I designed this little guy. It's just a little hole cover, slides into place using the same lens mounting mechanism. And if you're somebody who's constantly, again, going on and off, you can take that same thing, flip it around, and it's meant to get stored right on the top of there. It's supposed to be flush, but I think this one warped a little bit. So it slides into place and then it's dark in there. As you can see, white faceplate, not a great idea. And then once you're done, lift it up, flip it around, and then you can mount your camera. What is going on? Last but not least, the thumbony. I am terrible at naming things. I knew that I needed a name for a thumb screw of sorts, and boners are hilarious, so thumbony it is. One of the difficulties of designing this kit was making everything smaller and low profile, but not too small to where it was difficult to work with. So having these larger thumb screws, having 3 of them, kind of got a little cumbersome. So I started to design things that were using these screws instead. So let's say, for example, you've got the roto-locked L-bracket. I just printed this one, was that today? Oh, it was 2 days ago, 7/26/24. So the thumbony was designed to be able to mount onto that screw and allow you to tighten it. I designed it snug so that if you wanted to shove the screw into the thumbony and leave it, you could. Oh, it's a long screw, Jesus. And on these two, I actually put a bunch of super glue in there and then let it sit overnight. So these are attached. I'm pretty much including these with the kit. I'm including the 3D printed part pretty much for free. It was just kind of a fun thing that I decided to design in the middle of all this. And that's pretty much it. The main kit is going to come with the bracket, the faceplate. That's the old design, not that one. This one. Landscape spacer, 2 portrait spacers, 2 thumb screws, one of those screws, a thumbony, and a hole cover. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Bracket, spacer, 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 faceplate. Oh yeah, collector's edition will have the roto-locker bracket. This has been an insane experience. I have never spent 8 months on a single project. This was one of my first from scratch 3D designs ever. And it just got away from me in a good way. I just couldn't stop trying and prototyping and printing and testing and going back to the drawing board. It was this challenge to reach like a good finished product, and also to just design a product from scratch and to have people test it was really an experience of its own as well. So if this is something that interests you, I'm gonna have some links in the description. The launch date is hopefully going to be like a week or 2 out from today, or from whenever this video goes live. If you want to be the first people to be notified that these kits are live, there is a newsletter on the Fourth Wall website. Again, link is going to be in the description. I'll put it up on the screen. Newsletter subscribers are going to get the first notification that these are out. There's going to be, I think, 5 different kits available of all different sizes. You can kind of pick and choose which kit you want based on your use of the prompter. And then some of the parts are going to be available on their own, so that if you get a full kit and you decide you wanted a different bracket or a different mount, you can just go get the other one if you want. Not only was this my first design ever, this is my first sold product that I've made ever. And this has all been just an incredible learning experience, from the design to the printing, to the parts, to the shipping, to the logistics and the spreadsheets and the tool. It is so much, and I've learned so much, but it's really been a lot of fun. So I know this just was a lot of talking and not a whole lot of flashy video content stuff, but I hope that it gave you insight, it gave you inspiration. If you are somebody who buys a kit and you end up using it and you want to give me feedback, please give me feedback. I will take any feedback that I can get. Everything you need to know about these kits going on sale will be available on my website. I'll be posting about it on Twitter, and the Fourth Wall shop is going to be pretty much the home base for everything. I know I'm nervous when I don't have anything to say, so I think that's a good place to end it. Good night.